New York City may be famed for its soaring skyscrapers, but tucked amid the urban bustle are historic homes that offer intimate windows into the past. These house museums, once grand mansions, humble tenements, and everything in between, let visitors walk in the footsteps of earlier New Yorkers. Hi everyone, Ken here. Hit that subscribe button and let's explore my top 11 house museums to visit this year in New York City. The Morris-Jumel Mansion, Manhattan's oldest surviving house, was built in 1765 as a summer villa for British Colonel Roger Morris. This stately manor sits atop a hill in Washington Heights and even served as General George Washington's headquarters for a month during the Revolutionary War in late 1776. In the 19th century, it became home to Eliza Jumel, one of New York's richest women, who famously married former Vice President Aaron Burr in the mansion's parlor in 1833. The New York City government acquired the property in 1903, and today, the house is preserved as a museum filled with period furnishings and art that evokes its multi-layered history. Now designated a National Historic Landmark, the Morris-Jumel Mansion showcases architectural details from the colonial and federal eras, including its grand two-story colonnaded portico and an octagonal drawing room. The museum's exhibits and programs celebrate over 250 years of New York history, making this mansion a must-visit for anyone interested in the city's early days. Next, we'll head over to Gracie Mansion, which is a cheerful, yellow federal-style wooden house built in 1799 by Scottish-born merchant Archibald Gracie as his country estate. Situated in today's Carl Schurz Park on Manhattan's Upper East Side, the two-story house overlooks the Hell's Gate section of the East River and remains one of the city's oldest wooden structures. In the 19th century, Gracie's residence hosted gatherings of New York's political and social elite, and later it served varied uses, everything from an ice cream stand to the first location of the Museum of the City of New York. In 1942, Gracie Mansion was designated as the official residence of the Mayor of New York City, a role it still serves today. Despite being an active mayoral home, Gracie Mansion operates as a historic house museum with public tours available. However, as of right now, tours are paused until the current mayor gets settled in, so make sure to check if it is open before planning your visit. Not too far away is Hamilton Grange, the former country home of founding father Alexander Hamilton. In fact, it is the only house Hamilton ever owned. Completed in 1802 on Hamilton's 32-acre uptown estate in today's Hamilton Heights, this two-story federal-style house was designed by architect John McComb Jr. Hamilton cherished the estate as a bucolic retreat, though he only enjoyed it briefly before his passing in 1804. Over the years, the house was saved from demolition by being moved not just once, but twice. First in 1889 and again in 2008, when it was carefully relocated to nearby St. Nicholas Park to preserve its setting. Today, Hamilton Grange is a national memorial operated by the National Park Service, open to the public as a museum honoring his life and legacy. The Merchant House Museum is a remarkable time capsule of 19th century domestic life. Built in 1832 as a red brick row house with a late federal-style exterior and Greek Revival interior, this East 4th Street home was purchased in 1835 by wealthy hardware merchant Seabury Treadwell. Amazingly, the Treadwell family lived here for nearly 100 years, spanning from the 1830s through the early 1930s, and they left behind their furniture, decorations, and personal belongings. In 1936, just a few years after the last family member passed away, the house opened as a museum. Today, the Merchant's House Museum is acclaimed as the only 19th century residence in Manhattan preserved intact with its original exterior and interior. Stepping inside truly feels like stepping back into the 1800s. Visitors can see the elegant double parlors with marble mantels, the dimly lit kitchen and household workspaces in the basement, and the upstairs bedrooms, all furnished with the Treadwell's actual possessions. From horsehair sofas and gas chandeliers to china, clothing, and even personal letters, nearly everything on display belonged to the family. The house itself is a designated NYC and National Historic Landmark, recognized for its architectural significance and rare state of preservation. The Merchant's House also offers guided tours and various educational programs, allowing visitors to intimately experience how a prosperous merchant family lived in mid-19th century New York. Theodore Roosevelt's birthplace, located at 28 East 20th Street, is a reconstructed brownstone townhouse that depicts the childhood home of the 26th President of the United States. The original house on the site was built in 1848 and was where Teddy was born and spent his early years. The Roosevelt family lived here until 1872, after which the neighborhood became more commercial and they moved uptown. Unfortunately, the original building was demolished in 1916. However, following Roosevelt's passing in 1919, the Women's Roosevelt Memorial Association purchased the lot and meticulously rebuilt the house in 1923 as a near exact replica of the original. Today, this house museum, a National Historic Site run by NPS, features 5 period rooms furnished with many original Roosevelt family items. The Lower East Side Tenement Museum occupies two ordinary-looking tenement buildings at 97 and 103 Orchard Street, but behind their brick facades lies extraordinary stories of everyday New Yorkers. The older of the two tenements at 97 Orchard was built in 1863 in the Italianate style as a purpose-built immigrant housing block. Over the next 7 decades, this building alone was home to over 7,000 working-class immigrants from around the world, packed 6 or 7 people to a tiny apartment. Generations of newcomers lived within the walls from 1863 until 1935, when the landlord evicted the last tenants rather than complying with new housing laws. The upper floors were sealed and left untouched for decades. In 1988, historians founded the Tenement Museum and began carefully restoring these long-abandoned apartments. Today, 97 Orchard Street stands as a time capsule of immigrant life, its crumbling layers peeled back to reveal the living conditions and personal stories of past residents. The Cooper Hewitt Smithsonian Design Museum is housed in the former mansion of industrialist Andrew Carnegie, offering a splendid example of Gilded Age residential architecture adapted for modern use. Carnegie had this 64-room mansion built between 1899 and 1902 on Fifth Avenue and 91st Street, at the northern end of Millionaire's Row. Notably, Carnegie's mansion was the first American private residence to incorporate a steel frame structure and one of the first with a residential Otis elevator and central heating. He spared no expense on technological innovations for comfort. He also situated the mansion with sizable gardens around it, which are now public. Carnegie lived here from 1902 until his passing in 1919, and his widow resided here until the 1930s. In 1976, this grand home became the Cooper Hewitt Museum, the nation's only museum dedicated exclusively to historical and contemporary design. Now part of the Smithsonian Institution, the Cooper Hewitt has been beautifully refurbished to serve as a public space while retaining its opulent domestic charm. Visitors can still admire Carnegie's wood-paneled library, the elegant sweeping staircase, and ornate drawing rooms, all while viewing exhibitions of industrial design, graphic arts, fashion, furniture, and other applied arts. The Frick Collection is also located in one of New York's last Gilded Age palaces along Fifth Avenue. Henry Clay Frick, a steel and railroad magnate, built this magnificent residence from 1913 to 1914 as his private home, sparing no expense on its design and construction. The mansion, located at 1 East 70th Street facing Central Park, was designed by architect Thomas Hastings in a Beaux-Arts style that exudes elegance and grandeur. Inside, the rooms were meant to showcase Frick's formidable art collection. Even during his life, Frick decorated the walls with old master paintings by the likes of Rembrandt, Vermeer, and Whistler. The interiors feature ornate plaster ceilings, marble columns, carved wood paneling, and a glass-roof garden court. After Frick's passing in 1919, he bequeathed the mansion and his art collection to the public. The house was accordingly transformed into a museum, which opened to the public in 1935. And it has since been revered as one of the world's most intimate and beautiful art museums. Now heading outside Manhattan, we'll take a look at the Bartow-Pell Mansion, a Greek Revival-style mansion nestled in the vast Pelham Bay Park in the Bronx. The estate's history stretches back to the mid-17th century, when Thomas Pell purchased the land from the local indigenous people. But the current mansion was built between 1836 and 1842 by Robert Bartow, a Pell family descendant. This solid stone house, with its symmetrical facade, epitomizes Greek Revival architecture and indeed boasts one of the finest Greek Revival interiors in the nation. The Bartow and Pell families owned the property until 1888, when New York City acquired it to incorporate Pelham Bay Park. After decades of vacancy, the mansion was restored in the early 20th century by the International Garden Club and eventually opened as a museum in 1946. Notably, it remains the last surviving 19th century manor house in the Pelham Bay area, a rare remnant of the Bronx's aristocratic past. Today, visitors to the Bartow-Pell Mansion can tour its beautifully furnished period rooms to glimpse the genteel country life of a prosperous New York family in the mid-1800s. Wave Hill is a 28-acre public garden and cultural center overlooking the Hudson River in the Riverdale section of the Bronx. At the center of this oasis is Wave Hill House, a gray fieldstone villa built in 1843 by lawyer William Lewis Morris as his country home. Over the years, the estate passed through several prominent hands and hosted an incredible roster of notable guests. In the late 19th century, it was owned by publisher William Henry Appleton, who expanded the gardens and greenhouses and rented the house out in the summers. Theodore Roosevelt's family spent the summers of 1870 and 1871 at Wave Hill when Teddy was just a boy. And a few decades later, from 1901 to 1903, author Mark Twain leased Wave Hill House. In the 20th century, the estate was owned by financier George W. Perkins. In 1960, the Perkins family deeded Wave Hill to the city, and it opened to the public as a horticultural center and arts venue soon after. Queens is home to a notable historic house museum that illuminates the life of a founding father and early New York statesman in a bucolic setting. King Manor was the homestead of Rufus King, a Revolutionary-era political leader who was a signer of the U.S. Constitution, a U.S. senator, and an early advocate of abolition. King purchased the already historic house and farm in Jamaica, Queens in 1805 and expanded it into a 17-room country manor where he and his family lived for generations. Parts of the structure date back to about 1730, with later enlargements in 1755 and again under King's ownership around 1810. As a result, the architecture of King Manor is an interesting mix, predominantly Georgian and Federal styles, reflecting the 18th century core and early 19th century additions, with some Greek Revival elements added in its later years. The house remained in the King family until 1896, after which the property was sold and converted into a public park surrounding the house. By 1900, the manor was opened as a museum, one of the country's earliest house museums, and today it operates under the Historic House Trust of NYC. New York City's house museums are far more than just old buildings. They are immersive portals into bygone eras, each with stories to tell about the people who lived in them and the city's ever-changing landscape. From the modest tenement flats of immigrants striving for a better life, to the lavish halls of industrialists flaunting their wealth, to Revolutionary War generals and statesmen shaping a new nation, these homes capture the human side of history. Visiting any of these 11 sites is a chance to time travel and experience New York as it was in centuries past, all while gaining a deeper appreciation for the diverse social fabric and the architectural heritage of the city. Whether you're a history buff, an architecture enthusiast, or simply looking for a unique adventure in the Big Apple, the city's house museums offer something enriching and inspiring at every turn. So next time you need a break from the modern metropolis, step through one of these doorways. You'll find that history truly comes alive in New York's house museums. And with that, I'll turn it over to you. Let me know your thoughts on these house museums down below in the comments section, and while you're there, make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an exciting episode of This House.